Okay, we are back. All right, I'm very excited to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Graham Hill, originally from Canada, now based in New York, and he did a fantastic TED Talk about less stuff and more happiness. And one of the things that I find in my day job as a financial advisor is that people keep thinking that it's all about more and more stuff. But Graham, you've got a slightly different philosophy. In fact, some people would say, well, I don't know how to say this nicely, but you're crazy. Who are you kidding? Who are you kidding? I mean, does less stuff really bring more happiness?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty convinced. Listen, I don't want to preach. It's not for everyone, but it is for a lot of people. And I think I wrote an op-ed in the Times and also the TED Talk that you referenced, and both of them got a tremendous amount of traffic. And I don't think it's because of my oratory, but rather that there's an underlying desire for less. And I think, at its worst in sort of North America, and we have about 3 times the amount of space per person that we did 50 or 60 years ago, but happiness levels have flatlined. Many European countries live, probably Israel as well, live with around 1,000 square feet, and it's like 2,700 here. So I think it's pretty clear for a lot of people that we can live with a lot less, and it ends up saving you some money. It lowers your footprint, which feels good, and I think it makes more room for the stuff that's actually really important, which is your experiences and your relationships and connections and spending time with your friends and family.
So I can relate to that. And in fact, interestingly, I grew up in a pretty big house in New York, and then when I moved to Israel, we kind of on purpose lived in a much smaller place, and we've stayed there, and we've got 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, and we always had them share a room. We never said, each kid has to have his own room, and just because we felt that like people should feel a little bit closer on the one hand. On the other hand, I've often wondered, and maybe you can tell me, what do you attribute the fact that people have bigger homes now, but they're less happy than they were? Why would that be?
I think part of it is just often living outside your means. And I think part of it is that we tend to separate ourselves from others, maybe in a fear of intimacy or something like that. But what we really want is intimacy. We want to be around other people. That's what life's about. And so, I think you still want to have a little bit of private time, private area. I think that's important. But on the large part, we want to be around people. And so, bigger houses and gated communities and commuting by yourself in a car, and these are all things that separate you from other people.
So you're saying that having all of these possessions is a way of kind of moving yourself away, because then you're very self-sufficient. And I guess the extreme example of this is how people, you go to a restaurant and you see 3 or 4 people sitting around a table, and each one is clicking on his or her own iPhone and simply not talking to one another. Or maybe they are. Maybe they're sending messages to each other that way.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I think they're often not. They are messaging, and it just, when you're with Cindy and then you're texting Jack, and then you're with Jack and you're texting Cindy, it doesn't make a lot of sense, But I think it's just, that may be this sort of, fear of intimacy a little bit, and it's a really sad thing in my opinion. So yeah, I think that we actually really do want to connect with each other and connect in person. And not that stuff's bad, but I think that's what we're really, really desiring, but we have sort of bad habits.
All right, so help me apply this to my day job. As a financial advisor, I tend to sit and talk to people about their finances and their goals, and a lot of what I talk about is things like saving for retirement. We calculate how much money you have to put away every month so that you'll be able to be successful in retirement. Mm-hmm. It becomes very numbers-oriented, and I feel that maybe if in these conversations I could bring in more of what you're saying, I'd be able to help people out. But if I say, don't worry about the money because you could always live on less, I got a friend named Graham, and he's happy to live in 400 square feet, I think they're going to think that I'm just, shirking my responsibilities.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there are some clear studies that you've probably talked about on your show at some point that show that it's something like around, it depends where you live, but around $60,000, $70,000 a year, happiness pretty much flatlines. Like, money does make you happy. If you go from $0 to $20,000, that puts a roof over your head and gets some more safety and more food. It makes a ginormous difference. But then as you go up, and you can go out for dinner at a decent place, you can take a vacation, you can have a decent place to live. After that, where do you go? Okay, you can take a longer vacation, a better vacation, you can eat at a more expensive place, but it just doesn't make that much of a difference. And often, when you have a ton of money, then you end up worrying about it more, so it actually can go down. So I think it's pretty clear that some money helps make you happy, but at a certain point, it really flatlines. For people planning for retirement, it's just, a feeling of safety, and that they can cover their health care costs and that sort of stuff. But it's not going to be about having the house that has another bedroom on top of it and a better media room is really not going to make them that much more happy.
We're talking with Graham Hill, who perhaps you've seen his TED Talk, Less Stuff, More Happiness. He also, as we've now learned, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times on the topic. You know, Graham, one of the things you're talking about, safety, is a great question because especially in the U.S. where healthcare costs are just out of hand, people really do feel unsafe, or they'll say, listen, I might end up in a nursing home and it's going to cost me $10,000 a month for how, it could be for years. I don't have that kind of money. And in fact, this argument of saving enough for feeling safe is actually, it goes around and around. It's infinite. You could always need more because something else might happen. What would you say to someone who's saying, okay, listen, I just got to, I have to chill out a little bit. I got to find a way to be happy and not afraid that I'm going to run out of money. How could someone develop that sense?
Well, I mean, it's true. It really depends on your situation. But I mean, certainly by editing down your lifestyle so you really understand what stuff really does make you happy and what doesn't, and getting rid of the stuff that doesn't make you that happy. Yeah, and then think about going forward. I'd be thinking about saving up a bunch of money and then moving to an Asian country with a lot less expensive living but good healthcare.
Yeah, I hear that. I like your idea of getting rid of stuff. One of the things I think is important about stuff that people often don't realize is, we talk about buyer's remorse, where you buy something and then the next day you feel bad. But it doesn't always happen instantly. Sometimes it takes a few months. And I think that people who want to actually enjoy their money and their things more would be much more well served to buy fewer things, but the stuff they really want, instead of constantly buying things that literally after days or weeks or months, they're just not going to be happy that they have anymore. And living the frugal lifestyle, you'll very likely end up building up a lot of wealth just because you're not buying the stuff that you don't really want.
Yeah, and a lot of times the shoes that are twice as expensive but last 4 times as long are actually half price. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes the smartest thing to do is actually the expensive thing that will make you happy and they'll last longer. So, yeah, I mean, I think slowing down the process in general, really planning your purchases and just getting, we say less but better. That's sort of what we're after. Of course, we're not saying don't have stuff. You need stuff. But just really think about what you're buying and what really matters to you and buy the great stuff. And that often can actually be the smart move to make in any case.
And what do you think about things that have sentimental value? Because a lot of times things have both sentimental value as well as worth, and they can take up a lot of room, furniture, your grandparents' furniture, and all of a sudden, you don't have a place to put it, but you don't want to throw it away. How do you deal with that kind of stuff?
That's a tough one. It's a really tough one. But I think we should be a lot more easy on ourselves because often we do it because of, how someone else would feel about it instead of how we really feel about it. And I think, I think the beauty of photography these days, in particular digital, is that you can sort of keep a memory. So I'll even take a picture of an old worn out t-shirt that just I loved and I wore for years and it really reminds me of a certain time. But yeah, so with a lot of sentimental stuff, you can do that. You can take a bunch of different pictures and then get rid of it, or sell it or give it to someone But it's really about becoming really conscious about what really matters to you and understanding that sometimes the getting rid of the thing is actually the thing that's going to bring you more happiness than holding on to it and stressing out about it. I mean, I'm still perplexed as to cars, how in some ways, in some things, you just end up buying things that bring you a bunch of stress. It's this perfect thing that you're worried about. And, who wants that? So in some ways, I'd rather get the nice but secondhand car that just has a little bit of wear on it, and then it's actually it works great, and it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling. The parking lot by my office is just a mess. It's a poorly run parking lot, and cars get beat up all the time. And from time to time, we think about buying a nice car. We always say, just forget it. Let's just whatever car we end up having, we'll drive it into the lot and it's going to get banged up. And then we don't really care. In fact, I remember when we bought a new car once, but not a fancy one. Mm-hmm. And it got its first scratch. And I was so happy. I said, fine, okay, good. Now it's been initiated into the parking lot.
Yeah, right.
We don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, Graham, it sounds like you've learned a lot not to worry. And I know that people can really learn a lot from what you've done. So in the last few seconds, just tell me, how can people follow you and follow your work?
Well, my company is called Life Edited, and it's at lifeedited.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter there, and hopefully we'll start sending out emails soon because we haven't done it for a bit. I also am the founder of treehugger.com. I'm not connected officially, but I do love them. They got some amazing environmental stuff. There's some really great books out there. That Maria Kondo, Japanese woman, writes a lovely book on stuff that I would recommend. And but it's just like a personal thing. So yeah, Life Edited is a good way to start.
All right. Okay, we will put links to that at the show notes at goldsteinongelt.com. Graham Hill, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.